Now, this is the one that we're doing, the drawstring backpack layout guide. So what you're going to do is, if you'll look at this, we're going to lay the fabric out according to how it's showing in the picture. So it's kind of like taking a puzzle and putting a puzzle together. Okay, so when you put a puzzle together, you have a picture that you're looking at, and then you try to make your puzzle look like the picture, right? Okay, we're doing the exact same thing with this, except it's easier because you don't have to sit there for hours trying to fit the pieces together. Okay, if you look at this, you'll see there is the edge that has the selvage edge, which you're gonna learn about. We haven't defined that yet, but you also have the fold here. And the fabric it's already folded on the bolt like that. So your fabric won't be on a bolt. It's just going to have a piece, and it's gonna look more like this. So you'll have, and it may be longer, so you may just be right on the edge. But your selvage, this is the important part. The selvage and the fold are parallel. So the selvage and the fold have to be parallel. The selvage edge means the edge that does not cut, okay? The edge that is not cut at the fabric store. So right here, this is where they cut it, and then this is the edge they don't cut. And sometimes it has like fancy little prints on it, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just have to look close to see if it is the selvage. So it's the edge that doesn't fray and it's not cut at the fabric store. The pattern on the left is an 11 by 14. That will make the bigger backpack. That pattern can be made from a standard 11 by 17 page of paper, and then it's printed on a printer that will print that size of paper, and then you cut 3 inches off the bottom. And if you want to make the smaller backpack, it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You just print it directly. This one is for the small backpack. It's 8.5 by 11. It's just a normal size paper. So even if you don't have a pattern, you could still like just take a normal size paper and cut it out. So after you learn how to do this, you could go home and do it without even a pattern if you have the instructions, because this pattern just has the marks on it, but it's the exact same size as a paper. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna cut out the small one, but most of you will probably want to do the bigger one. So the smaller one is that one in the middle, okay, the striped one, and then the bigger one is the polka dot with the stripe pocket. So there's two. So I'm just gonna do a small one for the demo, but you guys can do either size. This is parallel. Okay, now, this is the important thing you need to understand here. There is a grain line on your pattern piece, okay? On most of your pattern pieces, there's a grain line or there is a place on fold mark. And on the pillow, there's a place on fold mark. Okay, this grain line has to be parallel to the edge. So if you lay it like this and that grain line is going perpendicular to the edge, it is wrong. And I'm going to make you fix it. So there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of when you're laying it out. First, you have to have a sign off before you cut anything. Why do you think? So I don't want it cut wrong, because you're gonna have to go home and tell your mom that you cut it wrong and you have to buy new fabric. Now I had you bring enough so that in case you make a mistake, you won't have to do that, but the less fabric we can waste, the better. So you're going to pin it right here, we'll tell you. So step one is fold the fabric for the backpack so that the fold is parallel to the selvage edge. So here's the fold over here, and here's the selvage edge here as pictured. Okay, then you're going to lay out the pattern so that the grain line is parallel. The grain line is parallel to the selvage edge. Okay, now this is the tricky part. How do you pin it down? Okay, a lot of people like to pin like this. Okay, I've seen that a lot, but what is the problem with pinning like this? No, that's a good guess though. Thanks for, okay. See how it doesn't stay? It doesn't hold it down. So don't pin it like a pin cushion. I'm gonna show you how to pin it. Okay, so I'm going to, notice how I'm also cutting this next to the selvage and not next to the fold. Do you guys remember that from the hot pad? Why do I do that?
Saves fabric.
Saves fabric, good. Okay, so I am going to, on the first step, I'm going to pin and then measure, because I need to get a measurement. I need to know how far away this is from that edge. So I'm going to pin it here. So So this grain line needs to be parallel to the selvage edge, exactly parallel. So in order for me to do that, I have to pin, I'm gonna put a pin right through the grain line. Now I stick the pin down through the grain line and back up. Now even if you have a really short grain line that's like this big or this big, you still have to put a pin on both ends of the grain line to get it so that it's secure and it doesn't shift around. So I am going to put that pin in right here, and then I'm going to measure from this grain line to the edge of my fabric. The measurement's about 2 3/8. So the first one I'm going to put the pin in first and then measure, and then the second one I'm going to put the pin in after I get the measurement. So I'm going to make sure the measurement's the same. So 2 3/8 is right there. Okay, and now I look and make sure that my line is lining up with the end of the measuring tape right there. And then I put the pin in. So that's how you get it even really easily. If you put both pins in and then you have to move the pins, it just makes it more complicated. So once I get it laid out, kind of back the camera up. Once I get it laid out, you'll kind of see that this edge is even with the grain line. For the backpack, and you can get 2 of these. I've got lots of them. Okay, so you can get 2 of them for the layout. Just make sure you return them so the next person that is ready to use them will be able to. So what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to fold that at that, see this line at the top? I'm going to fold too much, so I'm just going to fold it on the line that was there. So this fabric has a selvage edge, but it actually is, I bought it as a quarter at Walmart, and so it doesn't have an underlayer. So the pocket on the backpack actually does not need to be, it doesn't need to be or 2 layers, like you only need 1 layer. And I'm going to turn this around so that my pocket pattern is this way, but there's only 1 layer for the pocket. You don't need 2 layers. You can cut 2 layers if you want to, but you don't have to. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to take and I'm going to stick the pin right there in the pattern. Then I'm going to get the measurement to the edge of the fabric. You're not measuring to the edge of the pattern, you're measuring to the edge of the fabric. So just make sure you note that. Okay, this is 2 3/8 this time. Now I'm going to measure, make sure that measurement's the same, and then I'm going to shift it this way. Okay, and then if you back up, you can kind of see how this selvage edge is parallel to the grain line.